on, everybody? Welcome back to another Art of War stream. This time it is top 10 characters in the game. If you followed us last week, you saw the top 10 data sheets in the game based on our opinion. This is in the new meta. This is all based on the balanced data slate games that we've been playing. But now we are going to do characters, and if we had combined them to the overall top 10, there have been a lot of characters on that list.
They're pretty good. Absolutely. Characters are still awesome in 10th edition, you know, between epic heroes and even the unnamed ones that we see just in a lot of the good armies. There's a lot of armies right now that really rely on certain epic heroes, certain enhancements. We'll be factoring all of that into today's Tier List Tuesday.
Exactly. So a lot of stuff is going to go into this. If you checked out the previous tier list, you would have noted that we took a lot of different things into account in determining what would go into this list. So it wasn't simply, does this unit do like raw damage? Is it just the killiest thing out there? No, it might just be an essential tool that every army would want to have access to. So Warp Spiders made it up there, I think in that 4 or 5 slot. And it was because it is probably the single best mission tool out there, and it also does amazing damage.
Yeah.
So if almost any faction was like, oh, I could pick Warp Spiders, yeah, I'm gonna take the Warp Spiders.
There's one thing better than deep striking where you want, and that's walking wherever you want.
Or just walk straight across the board.
Just go. Just be there.
Turn 1 capture any outpost, no problem.
Never settle for less.
So same thing is going to apply to characters. Basically, is okay. Sometimes this unit, this character is going to bring a unit up to do outrageous amounts of damage, but sometimes it's going to make that unit do like 5 different things. And that's really good. Sometimes it's going to make that unit be, insanely durable, or it's going to function as an aura piece for a whole army. That also is a lot less common in 10th edition, but there are a couple units in the game that do it.
There's a few, and we are taking into account whether or not something could take an enhancement as well. Yes. So, we may not just rank what does a Primaris Captain do, it's what does a Primaris Captain with the right enhancement do? And so having access to helping multiple units or being very diverse or having a lot of useful enhancements could raise someone's stock. Or if you're an epic hero that can't take an enhancement, but you're just built different, you still might have a spot on this list.
You still might be there. And just like with the top 10 data sheets, non-characters that we did last week, there were a lot of honorable mentions. Like our list there was like a 30. Very solid 20 to 30 characters that are all very strong. And if your favorite character didn't make the list, they were probably on our extended list.
Yes, except for Call.
Why would you do that to me? Why would you talk about one of the worst characters in the game?
He's one of the best.
He's one of the coolest.
He's the dishonorable mention.
In coolest looking characters, he will make the top 10. Absolutely. Guaranteed.
All right, so before we dive all the way into this, real quick, if you like this content, please like the content. We really appreciate it. It helps us grow the channel, do all the good things. Leave a comment on the algorithm. Tell Richard that you like his hair.
Specifically talk about Belisarius Call.
Also,
that's what I'm excited about.
You know what? Let us know if you think Belisarius Call should have made this tier list. He's the only spoiler I'll give. He's not here. But yeah, like, share, comment, subscribe. If you subscribe, you'll get notified every time we go live on YouTube, because we do put a ton of free content on YouTube on basically every weekday at this point. So make sure that you tune in, and you'll get to see a lot more.
Absolutely. And if you want more, like John was talking about, check out The Worm, theworm.vhx.tv. There's a 3-day free trial to it. You get access to our awesome iOS and Android apps. And in addition to that, all the content that we put out. So every single week, we're putting out at least 3 different stream games. We've been doing a lot of tournament recaps and reviews recently. John, Jack, Quinn have all been at various tournaments. And Nick has just come back from Pura Cup with his sisters.
Indeed,
so
he has.
A lot of recaps. If you want our experience at tournaments, how that's going to influence our list design, and just the decisions that we're making, definitely check out those videos. In addition, there's tons more. There's Masterclass series. There's Jack Theory every Tuesday. And
I just finished up my Vanguard Space Marine Masterclass as well.
Space Marine Vanguard Masterclass in there. There's a lot of great stuff, and that 3-day free trial will give you a whole sense of it. So please do check it out. We really appreciate the support, and I'm sure you'll find great content in there.
All right, let's go ahead and get into this. So we've got a couple honorable mentions. Again, when we put this list together, we were like, oh, surely so-and-so is a top 10 character. They're crazy. And then we looked, we're like, wow, there are like 30 of these.
Yeah, so a little bit of trying to have a diverse enough list also played into this. So you're going to see, like, for a particular character, which has been mentioned in chat a million times already, he's going to kind of represent a whole type of that character.
Yeah, we're gonna simplify that one.
So there'll be not as much overlap in terms of direct one-to-one, so that we get diversity, because a lot of armies do just have amazing characters.
They really do. All right, let's hit that first honorable mention.
Boom. This is the Infernal Master from Thousand Sons, although he is basically representing the corpus of sorcerer type characters, because guess what? They're ludicrously strong, and part of this is the fact that they can bring a super inflamer enhancement.
Yeah.
I believe it's like Arcane Vortex or something like that.
Yeah, I think Arcane Vortex sounds like the right name.
It sounds like the right name. Well, anyway, take a pretty solid flamer and boost it into the next dimension, where you basically are just constantly killing stuff on objectives inside Warbrick Squad.
It's a 2d6 flamer at 6/2/1 with Hazardous, but Psychic and Torrent. And, it's Psychic, which means it could just be Dev Wounds if the T-Sun player jumps through a complicated hoop and says, I would like it to be Dev Wounds. You just get to choose. And then once you put that enhancement on it, I believe it goes to damage 2, and it might even go to strength. Is it +1 to strength and damage?
+1 strength and damage. We couldn't have just one of those. 2 of those is
That's pretty good.
Spicy.
And an 18-inch flamer, I have to say the difference between, and like I abuse this too, right? I have a Neurotyrant. The difference between an 18 and a 12-inch flamer is night and day.
Gigantic. It means you basically cover an objective from safety.
Yeah, it's quite good. And because, this is T-Suns, you can get at the reroll wounds if it joins a Rubricized squad and it shoots something on an objective. It gives a unit sustained hits, which isn't actually a huge deal if it just happens to have like all flamers.
Because this guy's going to kill most of it by himself.
It does get to flip dice to 6s, which means he's a little annoying to kill by himself when he's the last guy left in a unit. Also, when he's shooting a damage 2 Dev Wound flamer, that's also good.
All of it hits.
It hits.
It hits.
And I gotta say, you know what's better than damage 2? Damage 1 + 1. Sorry, other people on this tier list. This is slightly better.
When they have your damage, then you add.
Yeah, 1 + 1 is better than 2. I'm not to tell you. Everyone lied to you all of elementary school.
On top of that, obviously, he's a Thousand Sons character, so he's going to give you additional Cabal points, and that's crucial to how the functioning of Thousand Sons works.
Yeah, and we didn't want to put 5 different Thousand Sons characters on the list right next to each other and say, well, the Infernal Master and the Sorcerer and the Exalted Sorcerer and the Exalted Sorcerer on disc. So we're just kind of lumping them all together. But the Thousand Sons character package, not their epic heroes, their non-epic hero Thousand Sons character package, is just very good.
Also, their epic heroes are very good too. Don't worry.
We'll get there.
But their non-epic heroes are also amazing.
Yeah, 1 + 1 is greater than 2, obviously. Everyone knows that.
Yeah, I mean, I've played against this guy many times, and it is when he is just sticking out, covering an objective, you're like, well, somebody is eating this Overwatch, John. And I better have some cheap trash units that I don't really care about, because they're going bye-bye.
Yeah, someone's dying today. All right, you ready to move on to the next one?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so that's the first honorable mention. We got a couple here.
Yeah, we got a couple.
And the next one is Newly Arisen.
Yeah, this guy wasn't getting a mention last month.
He may have gotten play, but only because there was a total lack of character options, and you wanted him for that whatever.
I gotta say, though, they have made this guy relevant again.
Extremely relevant, frankly.
I would say so.
So relevant that you just take 3. You just start a Drukhari list with 3 of these bad boys. Yeah. And that is the point where you kind of are in that category, that top 15.
The Archon, really good. Obviously, we're referencing mostly the Sky Splinter, but he got a little bit of a glow up himself. So his whole deal is that he gives the unit that he joins reroll wounds when they're empowered. Now, of course, Dark Eldar get to spend the pain token, get reroll hits. And I gotta say, the only thing that makes me feel better than reroll hits is reroll hits and wounds. Great combo. Everyone loves that.
Is this 9th edition, John?
Less rerolls, baby. You know what? Drukhari deserved more rerolls, so we're letting it happen.
They genuinely did.
But now that he can also join Incubi, it's the Archon can join a more meaningful unit. His buff is unchanged, it just goes on a better unit.
Yes.
And now, because you have the Sky Splinter, it's a more focused detachment than what we saw before. And, unfortunately, a lot of these index detachments so far have been like this is the generic all-comers version of this army, and you haven't gotten that bit of focus, and Drukhari needed it, because generic all-comers Drukhari is paper. And so now that you have an army that actually hits harder, you can get Lance, you can get +1 AP, you get the reroll hits and the reroll wounds on the unit that has Lance, because I gotta tell you, reroll wounds when you wound on 6s is really nice, but it doesn't actually matter that much.
No.
Once you're like, oh, I'm strength decent and Lance, everything gets wounded at like half the time.
And the buffs that you just mentioned, those combat ones, this is what's making the Archon possible, or like really valuable, is the fact that you can actually punch up with the Drukhari melee units. So that detachment opening up those changes then made it so, okay, how can I punch up even farther? Now let me grab the Archon.
And you know, he's still a character with a good combo weapon and a 2-up invuln. Like
we didn't mention, the 2-up invuln that just keeps on going.
It does it.
It does.
I'm going to be honest.
I just killed him with mortals.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
I'm like,
hit that boy
grenade,
with
tank,
a grenade.
shock.
Grenade down to 1 wounds. Yeah, you can slow roll your dice. Now we're good. It's quite funny. With all that said, he also does buff shooting, so even though I think he has a very clear-cut, put him in Incubi, in Sky Splinter, and we now have a great way to use him, he can carry enhancements, that's all good. You can put him in a shooting unit, and like reroll wounds and shooting, Drukhari shooting's not insane, but reroll hits, reroll wounds sure does make it better.
Yeah, you got a bunch of special weapons on the Cabalites, then you throw the Slits and Urgles in there, and that unit actually shoots decently. I know Quinn was running
in
that
12 minutes, your opponent will have taken a lot of damage. But he's a good character, makes the army better, can join multiple units, even if he has a clear-cut best one. That amount of options just makes him a really good character.
On top of that, he can grab enhancements because he's a generic character. Yeah. And one of those in the Sky Splinter is turn off Overwatch, which
You've
for
got a couple options.
You have a couple options. That one stands out to me because if I can Overwatch into a bunch of T3 bodies, every single model, each model that dies really limits the efficiency of the army, I definitely will.
Yeah, well, no, you won't.
Now I can't.
All right.
Now, one last thing. Can I be honest with you, John, here?
Yes.
Just looking at this model, I don't want him on honorable mention because he disgusts me.
I tell you what, the best
Look
thing...
at that head, okay?
All right.
Why does he not have a helmet option?
It's really simple. GW actually sells a pack of 3 Archons. You just have to go buy some Sigmar models. just forget this guy exists.
What is that?
Go buy one of the Vampire Warcry Underdark Gallo
As
boxes.
bad as Call's rules are, I'd rather stare at those all day than this guy.
That's fair. Yeah, this model's bad. But that's okay. Go get an old Archon or just slap some Catalyte bits onto any Vampire Courts model and you're golden.
All right, let's talk about a model that doesn't look ugly.
No, this is how you rock a robe. I gotta say, this is one of those models where when we started, I was like, well, surely Azrael's top 10. This guy slams. And Azrael's really good. I get to give this spiel now because I actually know, man. Azrael joins any of the units it looks like he would. He is a walking foot character, but he's cheap and he brings so much to his unit and he helps the army. He's one of those give a CP characters. He doesn't have to be the warlord to do it, by the way. He has a very good combat weapon. He has a very good gun. He gives his unit sustained hits, 1, shooting and combat. He also gives his unit a 4+ invuln, shooting and combat. Once a game, he gives his unit a 4 feel and pain against mortals. So make the army have more CP. Does not cost a lot of points. Makes his unit tougher. Makes his unit hit harder. He himself hits hard. He has an AP4 damage 2 weapon with a good amount of attacks.
AP4 be rare.
AP4 be rare. That's pretty good. And also he has an incredibly good gun. You know how combi weapons got changed from being a plasma gun into a 1 damage anti-infantry devil?
Yeah, a nonsense.
He is a 3-shot actual plasma gun that is still Dev Wounds anti-infantry 4+. It's good and it's Azrael, so you know he hits hard. Yeah, Azrael, he has 3 abilities. One of those abilities gives 2 things, and then he has a warrior option. And it's well, every character gets 2 rules, but he also has a warrior thing, and one of these 2 rules is actually
really good.
2 rules into 1. It's oh, sweet. Yeah, just Azrael. And he's cheap. He's 105, I want to say. Maybe he's 110.
Pays to be a
pretty sure he's
chapter
105. Pays to be a chapter master. This guy's 20 points more than a captain. And it's oh.
It's insane.
Him. He's the one I want.
Now, it's so good, John, that there is a whole archetype of list doing well right now that is called Dark Angel's Ironstorm, in which there's 2 Dark Angel data sheets usually in these lists, which is Azrael and the Dark Shroud. Yep. And I think that's pretty much it. Not always.
Yeah, you used to include a Talon Master, but GW said no.
Yeah, they deleted him. But he's kind of holding up a whole archetype. That's how good he is.
Yeah, no, he literally keeps Dark Angels above the watermark. Because Dark Angels without Azrael, a little shaky. Just slam Azrael into a Space Marine, let's call it a day. He is golden. Love that guy. All right.
All right, last honorable mention here.
All right,
we've got Yes. Oh my God, it's Eldar. How could Eldar make this list, John?
You know what?
I heard that they were dead.
This guy used to be top 10. He used to be like top 6, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
This is the Farseer. And again, we could bundle a Bike Seer into this as
Could
well.
be the Bike Seer.
Could. But good buff, shockingly more damage than you'd expect from a tiny little elf character.
That's a really good psychic weapon. Like, it's insane.
Yeah, it has an actually good gun, regardless if he's on a bike or foot. It provides a very good buff to the army, be it fortune or guide. You know, would you like to reroll hits with the unit, including Overwatch and combat, or would you like to be -1 to wound on a potentially a very high toughness model that
Anything.
is auto passing? Could be anything, but on a high toughness model, you really
The fact that it's anything is hilarious.
Yeah,
Just a blanket -1.
could have slapped like non-Titanic, non-monster, bike, infantry, any limits in this.
Or if the strength
his unit, the unit he's leading.
or if the strength is greater.
Yeah,
It's
no,
like,
just might as well good. It's pretty great. So you have a good option, and then the flipping dice to 6 saves you from bad dice, which, what is it that Eldar player said recently? It's you don't actually reroll the dice ever because now you just have 6 6s. It doesn't actually matter what you rolled anymore.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, well, if it doesn't matter, then I'm glad. I'm glad. It's like, yeah, well, you just don't use the bad dice before, now you just have 6 6s. I'm like, sure, yeah, why not? Just have a Farseer. Flip those dice to 6s before you feed them through.
The other thing that helps this guy is the fact that every Eldar list isn't 3 Night Spinners anymore, which means that he doesn't just auto die in your backfield.
That's true. He's better in it. He's a little better in mirror now. But having one of the 2 Farseers, depending on the rest of your composition, is often a good idea. You get to make sure your fate dice just get fed through as strong, and then you've got a good buff if you're a shooting archetype, and you've got 1 big shooting unit, guide. If you are a, something you're trying to take one of the big stat bricks, you're trying to take a Wraith Knight, a unit of Wraith Blades, or you're trying to take the Avatar of Kane, remember that name, then -1 to wound. Let's just make them a little tougher. Let's just make those
a lot tougher.
Let's just make those multi-meltas wound them on 6s and see how it goes.
God help me if I have low strength anti-tank.
Yeah, God, we cannot have that.
So this guy, even though he didn't make the top 10, he's
on the cusp.
strong. He's
On the cusp.
right there. Okie doke. Heading into the top 10 now. First up, at number 10, he is a character near and dear to my heart.
Yep.
He is the Supreme Grandmaster of the Grey Knights, Mr. Kaldor Drogo. He is one of the strongest tools in the Grey Knight arsenal, and that is because Grey Knights live and die by making charges out of reserves.
It really helps if you can.
If you can, it is a big difference. And so he, once per battle, you can get +3 to your charge roll. And +3 is the point where all of a sudden those 9s are 6s with a potential CP reroll.
A 6 reroll I feel a lot better about.
Then I feel pretty confident that I'm going to make this charge, I'm going to get on the objective, I'm going to kill some things, I'm going to take away primary, and then I'm going to be in a spot that's really annoying for my opponent as I miss away the next turn if they move.
He hits very hard.
Yep.
He gives his unit a defensive buff. Right? Is a fort feeling pain against mortals?
Yes, sir.
That is a thing I like to have.
It is quite good, especially on 3 wound bodies that are already really
he's
quite
just
tanky.
a tanky dude. He gives your unit a threat dynamic it doesn't otherwise have. Because the Grey Knight, every opponent is like, all right, I'm going to be respectful of the fact that you could make a charge out of reserves. But every Grey Knight player knows that if they just line up their whole army on 9-inch charges, they might lose on the spot.
You might.
So you're not going to make that your game plan for long-term success. Drogo gives them that element of this charge is important. And the opponent knows this is not just bait. I can't just bait you with a trash unit and be like, well, if you try the charge and fail, you're screwed, so don't try. Because Drogo will actually hit it. And I believe they buffed his ability in a way that I don't actually understand, where now he can do it off of not just Deep Strike, but the Grey Knight Teleport, so that once a game +3 charge is a little more accessible. Awesome.
You can start him on the table and then go into reserve and then still come down and use the ability.
Which means he could turn 1, go for it.
Yeah.
Which is pretty annoying. All around good stuff. Again, character makes his unit tougher, hits harder, he gives a new dimension to the army. And that is a big deal. It's like if he just made the unit hit harder, because there's a lot of good Grey Knight characters.
There really are.
But he adds a unique dimension, in my opinion.
He adds the consistency factor that you 100% need.
Have to have it.
Because as soon as you fail a bunch of charges, like John said, you kind of are just in a really bad spot with Grey Knights. You can't afford it.
Statistically, we're coming up on the point where Drogo's going to fail a charge against me. Doesn't happen often, but he's made a lot. So we're coming up to that point where Drago's going to fail the 6-inch charge, and I'm just going to be like,
The first like 2 or 3 games I played with Grey Knights in 10th edition, I failed the Drago charge every single time with a reroll. But not since then. He has been the man. So this could have been, there are very other Grey Knight characters, like you mentioned, the Grandmaster with Sigil is extremely strong, ignoring modifiers and then Sigil to teleport. That guy's awesome. And he could have potentially made it, but I think the consistency of the charges with Drago is just too important. He is just automatic in my opinion.
Yes.
He also has a shield, and that
I do
means
like
a lot.
shield and sword is the ideal combo.
It really is.
It's quite based. All right, on to the next. That was 10. On to 9.
Number 9.
This is one that I have not seen in the chat so far. I think he is underappreciated.
He is definitely underappreciated, and that's because he is in a majestic army called Blood Angels.
Blood Angels are pretty good.
But he's the Sangor, and this guy, if you could take him, I think almost every army would go for him.
I'm going to be honest, I really want him in my Vanguard list.
Yeah.
I want him getting charged. And someone trying to charge me, no, I charge you. He's so strong.
So what is this guy? Okay, he's a lone op. He's a relatively durable lone op, Space Marine character, hits pretty darn hard with his
tougher
Angron
than your normal Space Marine character, though. He has a lot of wounds.
He does have a lot of wounds. But his key thing is that he has fights first. And a rule that when your opponent makes a charge move, he can come in from reserve.
Yes.
And when he comes in from reserve, John, he has fights first. So he's going to swing.
Comes in from reserve in combat with the thing that charged. And you do it at the end of the charge phase. Your opponent can't bait it out and be like, here's one thing charging. Do you want to Sanguinar? Nope. You get to see everything and then decide. He just arrives in combat with fights first. And he's not perfect, but look at those abs. He's pretty close.
He's pretty darn close. He's sculpted.
He hits hard. He's 8 attacks at 632. Devastating wounds. It doesn't cost a CP to yeet him into combat, so if you want, you can spend one on just like a quick, here, let me just epic challenge real fast. So you can't charge a character-led unit that needs it, because there's no way to keep him safe, right? You can, because he doesn't appear near the index cards. He appears in engagement range. So wherever your guy is, he just appears in engagement range, and he's like, I see you. Bink! I fights first, epic challenge, immediate death. Like, honestly, it's a very funny way to mess up an Archon.
It did. Check out the Worm games you carved versus Blood Angels. It was a pain to play around this guy.
Bad.
The thing is like when you're playing against Blood Angels, okay, you know they're going to be staged. You got to try and interact with them in some way. As soon as even if you want to like charge to try and like wrap a transport to stop him from getting out, he'll be like, you know what? I don't like that play. I'm here, dead.
You don't get to pile in because I'm basing you and you are planning on that, and now also stabs.
Also stabs. Like all the tricky stuff you can do with charges, he's like, I'm going to make you think at least 5 different times about doing it.
Yeah, it's very frustrating for the armies that rely on charging early game. Because if you just want to play against Blood Angels and you want to just not charge them and stay out for 3 turns while you wait for the Sanguinar to like actually natural deep strike, the Dark Angel player, the Blood Angel player is probably just charging you, and if you're not counter-charging at all, you're just missing out on too much damage you're going to get rolled. So he brings a lot. He is such a unique mechanic that he makes the list.
Yeah, he's unique, and then, like you said, he's just a lone op floating around the rest of the game. He's just beating up stuff.
We haven't mentioned a lot of lone ops yet. Lone ops are really good. He is not the only lone op on the list.
He's not the only lone op, but lone op is an amazing keyword. Forces your opponent to commit close, and you're committing close to a Blood Angels army? Sounds good.
Chuckles mistake.
So this guy is awesome. I frankly think almost every army in the game would take him if they could. Because he's also very cheap for what you get. He's what, like 140?
That sounds right. He's in that 100.
He went down in points.
140. Yep.
Yeah, I believe he started at 160 and went down to 140. Like that
is a good price.
That's a steal.
All right, that's number 9. Let's move on to the top 8.
Number 8.
The Elite 8.
Boom. He's the... if you're not clear who this is, it's Necron Cryptek, but it's the Technomancer. Yes. And the Technomancer has been, since the beginning of the edition, the best character. And he's changed almost completely since the beginning of what he does.
Yeah.
He used to be... In the index, he also gave a 5 Pheno Pain, and could heal your units. But he also was a lone op. They took away the lone op ability. But then they were like, what? All right, we're taking away lone op. Okay, this is a little harsh on the Technomancer. Let's let him go inside Wraiths who have just gotten a fresh extra wound to go to 4 wounds with a 4-up invuln, and now can give them a 5-up Pain. And for the low cost of 60 points. So,
It's the 60 points that just kills me.
so to be clear, if they didn't give it to, if he didn't go in Wraiths, yeah, he probably wouldn't be seen too often.
Yeah,
But they were like,
if he couldn't join Lichguard and couldn't join Wraiths,
yeah, he should be able to join Lichguard still, I think, because of the changes.
but now he has something else to do.
But now he has something else, and Wraiths are a lot more heinous, as people have found out. Do you remember the fur at the beginning? Like, the Necron Codex comes out, all the Necron players like, this army's not good, blah, blah, blah. Jack and I are like, this army's amazing, this is a huge upgrade.
It happens every time. I won't be unfair to the Necron players, for everyone has done it.
And part of it was like, oh my god, the Technomancer got so much worse, they took away a Lone Op. Well, don't worry, they added a whole different dimension of Necron
Wraiths.
shenanigans and durability.
Yeah.
This guy's amazing, and it's specifically because he can go in Wraiths. I don't think him in Warriors or Mortals is that powerful. I think the Chronomancer's better there.
On 1-wound models, it's a little less.
But on Wraiths, my god, you can soak so much damage. Even the killiest units, like I walked in front of John's guard army and still had half a unit left.
You just don't know what's going on.
I was just like, okay.
Breakpoints are fake. Once it's 4 wounds behind an invuln with a good field now pain, you are just throwing math out the window. You hit it until it's dead, and you might run out of time. That's it.
And the healing D3 in the movement phase is not to be undervalued because, there's a little, Catan hanging around. He healed D3 in my command phase from reanimation.
Yeah, not all wounds are created equal.
Heal another D3. Feels good. When your opponent leaves a Catan on a couple wounds and it's all the way back up to like half strength already, yeah, it doesn't feel good. Does not feel good.
Yeah. and I think that the Mancer here, the Technomancer, could kind of be symbolic of other cryptics as well.
I think the Chronomancer is the one who competes the most.
Chronomancer is quite good. He's the Fire and Fade guy. The Plasmancer is the one who does the Mortal Wound mini grenade and also gives critical 5s, right?
Crit 5s, yeah.
That has some pretty cool value. There's a couple different ways to take a good crypt deck, and there's a couple different detachments that like having a good crypt deck. I think the Technomancer is the best one. We didn't want to put 3, crypt decks right next to each other and just go 1, 2, 3. We only have 10 spots here. But you could say that we still tip our hat to the other crypt decks.
Yeah,
there's a couple.
If you play Hyperphase, you don't run the Technomancer.
Oh my god, we didn't put Illuminor Zares on the list.
Illuminor Zares. He doesn't deserve to be on the list.
What?
He does not deserve to be
Aura
on the list.
of Armor of Contempt and +1 AP, and he is so
I will debate you
durable.
on that. We can debate it at the end.
Oh my god.
He is durable, but at the same time, he's not essential to any of the Necron lists. There's tons of Necron lists that don't even consider running him, even with Immortals or Warriors.
Oh, man.
Okay, it's a 3-inch aura, John.
I don't care.
It only really works on Warriors.
I miss auras.
Yeah. You play that army slowly walking up the board, and then
I'll not Necron player.
Okay,
I'll
good.
you chief.
I think the Technomancer makes the list over him for sure.
Fair enough. Well, that's fair. All right, let's move on to the next.
The last thing I'll say is that this is the easiest Necron unit to use. Is also a benefit.
It's just a thing.
Plug and play. You just put the character in the Wraiths, and the Wraiths are awesome. And you basically, whatever detachment you're running it in, it's just a really durable unit, regardless. Okay.
All right.
And one last thing.
There's always more.
If you run it in Awakened Dynasty, if they come in Epic Challenge out the Technomancer, you just stand them back up for 1 CP end of phase.
That's true.
There are some shenanigans.
There are 3 detachments where taking Technomancer and Wraiths is quite good.
Exactly.
All right. Let's go on to my
Number
favorite.
7.
I feel like it should be higher. Number 1 in the game. Marnius Calgar. Best chapter master in the Imperium.
Yeah, he beats out Azrael.
He's the best. Marnius Calgar basically just put the Ultramarine faction on his back and carried it to relevance. Because all the good chapters right now are you get access to a 5-point multi-melta on your all your gladiators. You get access to Wolfen and Thundercab. You get access to whatever, and not Deathwatch. You get data sheets in your unique chapters. And then there's Ultramarines who are just like, yeah, we don't have data sheets. We just have some absolutely Chad-tastic characters that do whatever they want. Marnius Calgar is that guy.
He's
the best. He's expensive. He's the most expensive chapter master, I think, in the game. But I don't care because he brought his friends with him. And they're all down to party. Marnius Calgar, he checks the Azrael box of does several things at once. And he does it in different ways. He gives a command point, as he should. He's Marnius Calgar. He bops in combat, but since he has 2 power fists, they're twin linked. So he hits harder than Azrael, not by like a significant amount, but I gotta say, when strength 8 versus 6 sometimes matters a lot, and twin linked is a hell of a drug.
Yep.
And he's 6 attacks, AP 3, damage 3, twin linked. He hits hard.
Is he sustained?
He's tough. He's not inherently. Doesn't have any inherent like hit rules like that. He brings 2 Victor's Guard with him, who I explain to people, it's like, oh yeah, it's like there's just like 2 custodians in front of the unit. Because it's a 2-up armor, 4-up invuln, 3 wound dude. You can pop armor contempt on him like all the Space Marines. While one of them is alive, Calgar has a 4-up feel no pain, which is like, oh, that's irrelevant. No one ever precisions out Calgar. True, but sometimes they kill his unit and you just don't use the Victor's Guard as tanks.
Yeah.
You can use them as tanks. They can be allocated to wounds too because they're a non-character model in a bodyguard unit. So you can have them be the thing standing in front of your eradicators or aggressors, tanking on 2-up saves, 4-up invuln, armor contempt. Or you can just leave them to the end. When they're done killing the aggressors, just Calgar and 2 dudes, and they're like, all right, well, I'm going to hit you. Cool, I kill 1 Victor's Guard. I'm going to keep hitting you. I'm going to put it on Calgar now. Like, really? On Calgar? Don't you have a Victor's Flag? I'm like, hold that thought. 4-up invuln, 4-up feel no pain. Oh man, the first time Calgar got shot by Wraithguard and lived, I knew I was onto something. I was like, yes! Invuln into feel no pain. They also hit hard. It's 5 attacks each at 5/2/2, weapon skill 2. God, I love Marneus. Calgar, let's talk about the rules now. He also makes his unit advance, fallback, shoot, charge. And that is money.
Sounds like some of the best rules in the game.
Yeah, it's like, take the things that make Gladius amazing. 1, put it on a unit without having to call the Doctrine. 2, put it on a unit in another detachment. Because, in the early Index days, it's like, yeah, Marneus Calgar does cool things, but if I want this to happen, let's just spend the Doctrine. And that was fair. And so you didn't see him a ton in the Index. But I find with Space Marines, you often want a unit doing something besides the active Doctrine. And so Calgar adding that in and saving you the CP while giving you CP, money in the bank. But in other detachments is where Calgar sings. He just dynamically changes a unit's ability to act. And again, he's pricey. I think he's 185 off memory. But you just have to remember, like, okay, how many points would you pay for the Victor's Guard? Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
and they're worth it. It's not like they're
it's a tax I'm willing to pay. Like, if you told me that the Victor's Guard were 25 points a model, I'd be like, yeah, that's totally fine. Cool, I spent 50 points on that. Would I now spend 135 on Calgar? 100%. Yeah. Like, you can break the points down by the models, like, just kind of guesstimate it and end up at a very reasonable, yeah, I'm gonna spend points on this. I just love it. Just love me some Calgar. I just love adding combat, fallback, shoot, advance, and shoot, do all the rules. You can do it even if you're battle shocked.
Why don't you talk about the units he can join?
He can join basically anything. So you see, Calgar wears Gravis armor, and he has the keyword, but his Victor's Guard aren't Gravis, which means that it's a power armor unit, so you can join it to all the power armor units or to the Gravis units. You can't join it to things like Terminators, but yeah, you just attach Calgar to Eradicators, Heavy Intercessors, Aggressors, or regular Intercessors, Assault Intercessors, Blade Guard, like Hell Blasters, wherever you want. Just Calgar joins any kit that came out in the last 15 years, other than Centurions. That's it. Calgar.
He is awesome.
he's my favorite. He's the one who had to be on the list. And I do think he's the best chapter master in the game. He doesn't get the supporting cast of like also Sword Brethren that someone like Helbrick does. But if it was just Calgar versus Helbrick, you would take Calgar every time.
Yeah.
Would I want to attach Calgar to Sword Brethren? Yes, I would if I could. But we're here now. And that's okay.
All right. So that's number 7. Moving on to number 6.
We're so close to the top 5.
He is the big red man.
Yeah, I think he's kind of lame.
This is Angron. So he is a big old angry demon monster, and he hits absurdly hard. One of the hardest hitting units in the whole game. Has a full rerolls to hit aura and melee, which also works in shooting as long as it's the following the subsequent shooting phase. So he's fantastic. In addition, you can get, because of their army abilities, you can get advance and charge on him, including flat 6 advance, and just be like, he's here, and charging anything that he wants. On top of that, he can also get access to sustained as well, and extra movement. So he can be basically threatening to be anywhere inside of your army at any point.
I hate Angron.
He can also come back to life. If you roll 3 6s on the Yahtzee roll of the blood dice, then he can, if he's been destroyed, he can come back At full health, all that stuff.
I think it's 8 wounds left.
It's 8 wounds left?
I don't think it's come back at full wounds. I believe it's come back at 8.
Okay, it hasn't mattered.
It's corn.
Yeah.
Yeah, come back at 8.
He comes back.
You kill him again, he comes back again, you kill him again, he comes back again.
Well, he comes back and he can rapid ingress off of that and get back into a really good position.
He sure can.
Then advance and charge again.
He can also just deep strike and call his shot, because one of his auras is +1 charge. So you can just call his shot and say, hey, it's an 8-inch charge, I got a CP in the bank.
Whoop. Done.
Let's see if the game ends now.
But pretty much what you can do is you aggressively posture him and you throw him out at some point. You go kill some critical resource, and then at some point, some other unit kills something, he's dead already, and then you try and do the extra blood dice roll to try and get him back.
All right, Chad is telling me it's full wounds, and I'm full of anger. I
told you.
I've actually never killed Angron.
See, I was right.
I've never killed Angron. I don't know what to tell you. 8 wounds was last edition, now it's full.
Yeah.
Fantastic, thanks.
It's just full.
Dear God in heaven, I feel like if he came back at 8 wounds once per game, I'd be slightly more okay with this.
Yeah, it is a nutty mechanic. Like I said, if you watch the tier list, I think that this is probably something that shouldn't be in the game. But at the same time, World Eaters have just one play style, so like they have to be able to do it well.
Yeah, you can't nerf Angron until you fix World Eaters.
Exactly. So
unfortunately,
it's perfectly reasonable in the context of what World Eaters does, but in the context of the game.
In the context of the game,
yeah. And we're gonna see a couple other units up there that are just silly for what they do, and they probably should not do it.
I even feel like Angron could be higher. The threat of flying a monster in an army that doesn't have fly goes like 22 inches, charges, kills most things in the game.
Pretty much everything, yeah.
There are very few things that survive. The things that survive is, all right, if I take my tanky unit, spend a command point, I'm going to have about 3 wounds left. All right, let's send it. Like, that's the plan. Like, okay. Like, yeah, I don't know. Like, my plan for tying up Angron is to charge him with a swarm and a monster at the same time. Be like, please don't kill both.
Charge your Archon in there. 2-up invuln, baby.
You gotta ask yourself if you're feeling
On va.
You can do so much with how hard Angron hits. And again, he gives very good buffs. He's not just a missly boy who crushes most things he hits. He also is an incredible aura. He's an aura of what he chooses between +1 charge, reroll hits, and a third option you don't take.
I don't remember what that option is.
I know that it's not reroll hits or +1 charge. And if you really need to make the charge and that's what matters, +1 charge. That reroll hits aura, it happens like at the start of the charge phase. You can't use it in shooting. But it lasts until the next charge phase. And so
it doesn't say melee attacks.
I know you don't. There's no guns in the World Eater army. But like, theoretically, hear me out, if there were just a couple, he would give them reroll hits.
Or the skulls, baby.
You gotta say it out loud. It's worth saying. So Angron, what a guy.
Really strong character and very strong mechanics to help him do what he needs to do. It's the threat projection alone.
The threat projection alone and how he does it. Because there are things that you can take against World Eaters where you can be like, okay, 8 bound are very good, but they don't actually kill a Redemptor with Armor Condemned particularly efficiently. -1 damage really big into the 2 damage models, go figure. Counterpoint, Angron.
Yep.
Okay.
Dead.
This is good. 8 bound, very scary. Corn Berserkers. If you just wrap them with its 120-man gargoyle, just keep them all back. Counterpoint, Angron. You get a hit modifier in there. Angron. Like, anything.
Having
Angron
fly
solves
keywords,
so many of their problems.
This is one of the instances where if you're an aggressive melee army that doesn't have fly in a lot of places, the threat of having fly in a place opens up a lot of options.
Yeah, and you know what? Again, I think World Eaters without Angron would be such a worse army that he just takes this army from would be terrible into actually, I think, quite good. I know World Eaters, we can argue about win rates. I don't think World Eaters are in anything reflective.
He's already
Jack showed it. Anthony was also the highest scoring member of the Pyro Cup.
Yep.
It's like, okay.
So,
turns out World Eaters not bad.
They're still good. Check out those 2 guys.
All right. Again, baffling that Angron didn't make the top 5, but you realize you can only have 5 in there.
You can only have 5. He made the top 10, which is already a lot.
Let's move on to the next one. It's real good.
The Captain General. Few people like the balanced data slate more than Mr. Trajan.
Yeah, no kidding. And it's Trajan's power is just like a combination of where the meta is and some FAQs, and he was always good. Yep, Trajan has not been bad in 10th edition.
No, he's been good the whole time. He's just now an auto take again.
Yep, he's just an auto take, and he gives again. He's similar to Angron. He gives an army that can fall into a little bit of monodimensional. problem. He gives it a dimension. Custodians are a lot of strength 7 AP 2 damage too. And they occasionally run into the problem of, 2-up save with armor contempt or -1 damage does take a while.
Yep.
And with the recent balanced data slate, we saw ignoring modifiers means exactly what it says instead of not meaning that for some reason. I don't really know how that got ruled differently for 6 months, but we are here now. Trajan ignores modifiers. And if you say, what about this modifier? Trajan just says, yes, that one too, stop trying. He's golden.
So that's half damage, minus damage, armor of contempt, doesn't matter.
Wound mods. If
All
you're
the
trying
things
to
that are
modify
nasty.
it, stop.
Yeah. So he's fantastic. Now, what else does he do? Okay, he doesn't just do that.
No.
He also is just an amazing beatstick because once per game, you can have just 12 attacks on this man.
Good profile,
out of
too.
nowhere.
Yeah, he's what is he? He's 10-3-3?
Something like that. Yeah. He hits extremely hard. On top of that, if you don't want to do that, you could instead be like, oh, once per game I'll have a, 2-up invuln if you're trying to epic challenge me out of the unit. No.
He can be tough. He can also pop the fight first, which if you ever don't have the CP or you really need it for something else, just having free fight first, not bad. It's one of those fun things where the longer you hold on to it, the more it lives in your opponent's head rent-free.
And it's going to live there.
And it's kind of like, what are they going to do? They're going to be like, maybe he won't pop the fight first. Let me charge him real quick. He's like, fight first. Like, I wasn't planning to do this, but now that you're charging me, die. He makes his unit able to solve a lot of the current problems in the game.
Yep.
And without ignoring mods, Custodians would struggle mightily to kill certain data sheets that are ranked above him.
Yep.
And even though he's ranked below them, Trajan real good.
Yeah, and the other thing is the units he can go inside. He can go inside Wardens, and if you watched the previous tier list, you recognize how deliciously strong those things are.
Yeah, those things are great.
And because they're so strong, he also benefits from their rules.
Yep. That's true. That's a factual accuracy.
He can also be -1 to wound against certain types of weapons. He can also have a 4 of Pheno Pain once per phase.
Yep.
Yeah, one phase of the game.
All good.
Yeah, him and Wardens just straight up automatic.
Peanut butter and jelly.
Yep.
Yeah, I think at this point, you just take them. All right. 4 left. Some of these may look familiar. I think
some of these have been here before.
Some of these have been here before. I don't actually know if this. I'd have to look at the last one. Surely he should have been.
He's definitely been here before.
Yeah. Well, there was his twin. His goth twin that we don't talk about.
I think we ranked them both in there, but I can't remember. So this is the Avatar of Kane. Yes, Eldar players, he is still one of the best characters in the game. If you're not taking him, why?
Yeah. Now, Eldar players sometimes complain about Kane, like, it's possible to kill him, or if I fail all of my saves, he might die. And to that I say, okay. Like, all right.
But also, sometimes he just walks through your whole opponent's army.
Sometimes he does that. I would say more than half the time. He's just like, wham. My opponent can deal 3 mortals a turn to me. Well, okay. I've got 4 turns of use out of this guy. You take Big Chongus, who hits hard, high OC, very good save, halves damage, has a good gun, overwatches like a mule for no reason at all.
Yep, fate dice because it's strong.
You got a pretty good character. He's also, does he have much in the way of auras? What is his? It's +1 advance in charge?
Yeah.
In an aura? That's pretty good in an army that can, like, fix its charge rolls, right?
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, when your opponent is like, well, I'm within 8 inches of you, so I'm just going to charge you. And you're like, oh, are you going to roll? He's like, no.
No, I'm just there. Don't worry
about it. 7 plus D6. Here you go. Like, does this make you feel better? Like, oh, thanks. Cool. It's quite good.
And then on top of that, this is where the Farseer comes in, because you take a really durable, annoying to kill unit, and you throw just a flat -1 to wound on it. Just -1 to, it doesn't matter what the strength of your weapon is, -1 to wound.
And you could even auto-pass some of his saves with fate dice that you flip to 6s. Or flip his awesome sustained hits D3 gun to 6 on Overwatch. Just be like, real quick, you moved a tank, it's dead. Like, what is it? His gun it's only 12 inches. But is it strength 16, AP 4, D6 plus 2 damage? Is that what I got right?
Yeah, I believe so.
I think that's what it is.
It's nasty enough where you're just dead.
Yeah, it's invuln. It's AP invuln on Overwatch every time, and it's just like on average, your tank is dead. It's like, oh,
yeah,
wow, okay, that's
Now,
Super glad.
the other thing that stands out here is that he is one of the few Eldar units that just has totally fine living on an objective. I can just live out there. I don't need to fire and fade. I don't need to hide. I'm just there.
That is a unique thing for Eldar that they otherwise lack.
Yep. So, Quentin's been running him for a long time. I know a lot of other Eldar players already had been running Kane. Now, with the nerfs to the Angron, you're seeing him even more.
Yep. And he's really dang good. Now, he's not the best character in the game. He is a little bit prone to occasionally getting hit by by like a doom bolt, a hot grenade followed by a tank shock. Sometimes you do fail saves. And yes, that's a problem that everyone else experiences, but in the supposed to be unkillable Avatar of Kane, he can occasionally die. But I think that there's
a lot of effort, though.
Yeah, it requires a lot of effort. And other than some very specific armies, most things don't put out the mortal wound, dev wound capabilities to actually drop Kane in a reasonable time frame.
Yep.
And committing to do it is a very high risk proposition, because even if you kill Kane, if you then have all of your Kane killing gear in the open in front of the smoldering crater that was the God of War, usually the entire other Eldar army will have something to say about it.
Usually.
So it's very hard to commit on Kane. And he can be insanely mobile. It's one of those things where sometimes the big beefy character, again, like some of the ones we'll mention later, sometimes you just see him and you're like, you know what? I'm not fighting him for that objective, and you leave. If you do that to Kane, he's going to move 17 inches, then fire and fade 10 more. And like, sure, is he doing anything after that? Not at all.
Yeah.
But did he move 27 inches to find your home objective and just sit on it and just be like, yeah, I'm not damaging you, but your turn.
Yep.
Like, he's there. It's like, oh, wow.
He is brutal. I played against him many times, and every single time he is just a bear.
He's a menace. I love him. I love to hate him.
This model is awesome, though.
They did him a favor with the new model.
Moving on to number 3. It's another big baddie. It's Mr. Magnus.
If you're gonna take
Magnus the Red.
Wow. If you're gonna take a big, tough, hard-hitting demon thing, let's make him fly.
Let's make him fly.
And then let's make him fly.
And let's also give him one of the strongest auras in the entire game.
I cannot think of an aura off the top of my head that is stronger than Magnus's. I really can't.
Yeah.
In an army like Thousand Suns, Magnus defines the T-Sun playstyle.
Completely defines it.
Like, T-Suns, I think, are an incredibly good army. They can be a little bit tricky to play sometimes. If you take Magnus out of T-Suns, and I get it, this is the same thing with Angron, it's just that I think that this...
It's even more...
I think this is even more pronounced. Magnus is insane. He shoots incredibly hard. He's not as hard-hitting as Angron, but his combat is still good enough to flip, insert generic tank 10 out of 10 times. He, in an army of Psychers, we'll just say his aura, right?
Yeah.
Now, he has 2 auras, or he has 2 abilities, right? He can choose to be an aura, and then he have like 3 different options, like a lot of these big characters now. And then he also has a side aura, just like a little...
That one is just permanent.
Just like a permanent one that you couldn't even choose to replace if for some reason you had a head injury.
Yeah.
Magnus is a 6-inch aura of +1 to hit and wound with psychic weapons.
Thousand Suns
T-Suns
certainly shouldn't have many psychic weapons.
That would be broken in Tyranids. In T-Suns.
Or Grey Knights.
Yeah, like any army with a psych... Like, I would pay for that in Guard and take 3 Primaris Psychers in Magnus. In T-Suns, give your army +1 to hit and wound only if they're near they're the closest thing to God that you get on a tabletop. And I say that because Magnus already killed God.
Yes.
Like, dear goodness.
Yeah, that's his auto one. Do you want to go through his 3?
Sure. I mean, he can choose to be -1 damage, which I acknowledge is not against psychic weapons, but trust me, Thousand Suns have a solution for that, so don't worry.
Don't worry, they got a strat.
Yeah, they got a strat for that. Don't even worry yourself.
That's the one you typically see if he's exposing himself, but he doesn't have to. There are ways to...
and when he's deciding not to go big or go home, he chooses maybe an aura of +2 move on the army, and that's not in the movement phase, just in case that ever came up. That's just an aura of +2 to movement characteristics for whatever phases that happens to...
And there's a couple.
Yeah. Or you do a weird thing where you pick an enemy unit within 24 inches to get hazardous on their guns. That's not what you do, and that's okay. You either do -1 damage for non-psychic attacks on Magnus, but then psychic attacks are terrible in Magnus because feel no pain and hazardous, or you do +2 moves. So if you're staging with Magnus And this is a battle round call, so you're not going to get caught off guard going second against damage to indirect and be like, oops, the Night Spinners. No. No. Just, it's not, it's already up. You do so much just giving an army +2 move or making yourself -1 damage. And then you stack the Thousand Suns debuff on Magnus. And Magnus, if Magnus just dives an army, he will do a lot of damage and die.
Yeah, and you just don't do that.
And you could.
You could.
Because he moves, what is it? Like, you can move him 48 inches in a turn? Like a ridiculous number? 42, I think.
You can move him a ridiculous amount with the +2 move and the...
I'm sorry, if you really want to, he could move 48 inches and then fire a gun. You usually don't need to do that. Because you can just make his gun indirect +9 inch range, reroll hits, reroll wounds. When you take the big gun that he has, you give it the Thousand Suns buffs, you give it the Thousand Suns strats, he becomes a point and delete button. And so keeping him alive for 5 turns instead of just killing the most stuff turn 1, just 5 turns of that thing, dead. Yeah, he just does the sprinkler dance pointing at things to die.
And if, God forbid, your opponent tries to threat overload you on objectives, you have this guy plus all those units benefiting from the +1 to hit, +1 to, mostly the +1 to wounds, really, with rerolling wounds. It gets insane because it's really the characters with their psychic weapons that are the strongest.
Yeah, because like the Rubric Marines themselves usually don't have a lot of psychic stuff. The Flamers aren't. You could spend a CP to make the Bolters it, but it's every squad has the character's Mind a Bullet, the character's Psychic Pistol, each character is somehow packing like a Hand Flamer and 2 different psychic guns, which is the weirdest thing ever.
They're like the
all of that, and then there's a character in every squad, and then Magnus, and it does work in melee as well. It's not just a shooting attack. Magnus takes Thousand Suns from an army that would not function without him to being, in my opinion, one of the stronger armies in the game.
Yep, and we rank them pretty highly. They are very hard to play, but at the same time, my God, the damage that they do is it's insane.
It's not good.
So Magnus, you are incredible. I'd like him to be a little less of a, you have to take Magnus to play Thousand Suns right now.
I honestly wish that the +1 wound was pick a unit. But T-Suns need a rewrite, because if you just nerf them no buffs, they have nothing.
Yeah.
But if they have ungodly damage output, it feels very bad. But we saw Magnus won a Super Major this weekend.
Yeah,
Magnus is pretty good, turns out. But we only have good options left at this point, right? We're on like a number 3 character in the game. Let's move to number 2.
A lot of people might think this is number 1.
And that's fair. There's a good argument to be made.
There's a good argument. So this is the Nightbringer. He is representing Catan. We could have put more Catan in here. He's representing the Void Dragon, the Transcendent, the Deceiver.
But he's the best of the Catan?
He's the best of the Catan. But Catan are basically here. They're one of the best characters in the entire game.
So what kills me about Catan is that they're so good and you kind of just can let them run. Like Magnus is incredibly good. And he gets better if you like buff the army, if you spend the strats, if you funnel 3 CP and 10 Cabal points through Magnus, he does so much. The Catan, just let him go. Just let him go. Just let him cook. You just send the Nightbringer on the flank, no one's gonna kill him. Send the Void Dragon into the middle of the Night Army, no one's gonna kill him, he'll be fine.
So these are a T11 with a 4-up invuln, 12 wounds, 5 of Pheno Pain.
Yes.
And half damage from Necrodermis. So you can put a lot of volume of 1 damage on them and try and take them, force them to take a lot of saves, or you can hit them with weapons that get like pluses to the damage, or melters, stuff like that. But you need to run enough of it that they can get past the 4-up invuln, because if you don't run enough, you do nothing and then they just kill you.
It's so deadly because sometimes you hit, like we've all rolled dice. Many of us in the chat have rolled a dice in a game of Warhammer, I would say. I would venture. This is a common thing. Sometimes you roll 6 4-ups and you fail 5 of them. Sometimes you roll 6 4-ups and you fail 1 of them. And then you take 2 damage and you're like, oh, 2 5s on Feel No Pain. Bounced. And it's so deadly to swing on a Catan and miss. And like a Wraith, but with 1 extra layer and a higher toughness.
And actual damage.
Output. It's one of those things where you can never just say, this does kill a Catan. Nothing just kills a Catan. Many things should kill a Catan. A ton of things can kill a Catan.
Yeah, there's a handful of units
and some things shouldn't kill a Catan, but still will. But nothing just says, I do 100% of the time, I do kill this Catan. Because like, man, you charge with a lance and your opponent just like rolls an extra 4, spends a CP reroll, rolls an extra 4, And the fact that a Lancer, on average, kills a Catan is straight out the window, and it took 4 damage, and it's going to heal 2d3 of them in 5 seconds, and you're dead.
Did I take 4 damage?
No. I shot you down to 3, and then I killed you.
Yeah.
That's how I did it.
I was like,
but
I
it
thought
could.
you did.
No,
Yeah,
it could.
it
I
could.
did get the Lancer kill. But it could go wrong, and you've just got to be prepared for that to happen.
Now, the issue here, John, is you can deal with 1 Catan. Can you deal with 2, 3, maybe more in Hypercrypt?
It depends on the army I'm playing, but I own several factions to which the answer is no.
Yep. There's a lot of armies in the game that the answer is a clear and resounding, oh god, I cannot. Yep. I am going to take these units, murdering me the rest of the game.
And their one flaw is that, other than the fact that they don't buff the army, which is fair, they just are units that exist to do their own thing.
But they're cheaper than the units that came.
They're cheaper than Magnus and the Avatar. If they were the same points, and Angron, if they were the same points, we could have a different discussion. Yep. But they're not. But they only move 6. Hypercrypt can fix that. And then they're just generically good in Canoptic Court because, they're just generically good. You take Catan in any detachment, honestly.
Every single one.
Honestly, man, if they just said every Catan is exclusive, only 1 god is allowed on the table at a time, and that would also help. But it's the fact that you can take several of them without it actually being a big investment. 2 or 3 Catan leaves an army behind. Once you take 4, that kind of is the idea of the army. At that point, you are a Catan list.
Yeah.
You can take 2 or 3 Catan and just still have a Necron army.
2 just go straight into pretty much any list.
Yeah.
Often the Nightbringer and Void Dragon.
I can't imagine not taking
the Nightbringer. And the reason the Nightbringer specifically represents here is because he's the cheapest.
Wait, is he actually?
Yeah, did you not know that? He's the cheapest. He's 255. Void Dragon's 270. Transcendence 275. The Deceiver's 265. He's the 10 points cheaper than the Deceiver.
I'm living in a simulation. Okay. I assumed he was the most expensive and it didn't matter.
No.
Okay.
But if he was the most expensive, let's say he was the Transcendence.
You would still take him?
Yeah, I would still take him over the other ones.
I just assumed.
And the reason is because he has swings. He has a scythe. And he's either got 14 sweep profile, 2 damage sweep, or he has a 6 ludicrously strong Dev Wounds attacks that do a lot of damage, as John saw.
He also has his gun is D3 shots at D6 plus 3 damage.
Yes.
Sorry, D3 shots, D6 plus 3 damage. Strength 12, AP2, something like that.
AP2, yeah.
It's wild.
And then he can only do mortals at the end of the fight phase.
And it doesn't buff the army, but it's such a plug and play unit. Just take it. Those points are spent on this 40 to 60 millimeter base, and it goes and does its thing. That's it.
Yep.
That's all you need to do.
And he does they do something really important, which is that Necrons. One of the ways to play against them previously was to just jam them up in the Necron deployment area, like keep them pinned back. Well, if you try and pin back Necrons with Catan, they just actually get to do stuff as early as possible and start murdering you quickly. So they really help one of Necron's weaknesses, which is being pinned back. You just really can't do it effectively thanks to Catan.
Yeah,
they just solved that issue.
Yes. And it's not even an issue anymore because every list just slams Catan into the list, so it's not a problem. Even though it would be if they weren't there.
It would be.
I despise these guys, especially the Void Dragon because his model is just so damn pretty.
It's so cool, right?
It's so cool.
That's the funny thing about the Nightbringer, though, is he has this old model, and it can just fit in all sorts of nooks and crannies. Dude. The Void Dragon's so big that you can see him over terrain and stuff, so there's a limiting factor there.
He can see you over terrain.
He can see you.
Yeah, there are many, and I think one of the reasons, even though Catan aren't a just make the army better thing, they're not like Magnus. Necron warriors do not care. They don't get better when there's Catan nearby.
No, but I would get him around boost for sure.
Absolutely. You're the Star God.
If I saw a Star God floating around, I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to hit you with my Goss.
Excellent. The Catans shut so much of the meta out right now. If there's one thing that is the stat check that keeps some armies down, it's Catan. There's always the thing. But now it's Catan.
And even if it's not completely shutting things out, it is forcing the meta to say, can I kill a Catan?
Yeah.
If no, I die to Necrons, and I will lose that game. If yes, can I do it multiple times? If the answer is yes, you got a darn good chance.
Yeah. But everyone is now, Trajan is a top 5 character because Catan are good. If Catan were bad, Trajan wouldn't have been ahead of Angron.
Now, he didn't make this list, but I will say another thing to point out, the strength of these is that I personally run the Silent King in my Necron list, and he is an aura of ignore modifiers, and it's specifically because if my opponent has Catan, I destroyed their Catan.
Yes. Yeah, that's powerful.
Just like, I'm going to kill your Catan, and you're going to struggle to kill mine.
Yep.
So, yeah, he didn't make this list, but he is also a very strong character.
There were so many good choices.
Yep.
There really were.
He's not as
Helbricht, the Palatine.
Yep.
There's a couple that I really wanted on here that just didn't make it. And it happens. Calidus Assassin, another strong.
Don't worry,
pick.
we still got number one.
We do have number one.
The chat is confused.
Some of the chat has guessed, but there's so many good options left. There's only one number one, and I tell you what, we have not had enough lone operatives yet.
This character at number one, every single army in the game would take him. Every single army.
Yep.
They would almost certainly take the Nightbringer as well, but this one is just cheap plug and play.
Yep.
And it does so much.
And I gotta say, cheap really makes me like an army.
Autarch Wayleaper. We could easily just go by what this guy doesn't do.
We should have played the recording of the last time we did this.
So the Autarch Wayleaper is the best lone op in the game, and is in my opinion just an auto take for any army. But for Eldar,
every Eldar has to take it.
I've heard Eldar players say like, yeah, maybe I don't. No, you're crazy.
No. Every Craft World list does take this guy.
Yep.
His only weakness is that he has to be the Warlord, and so taking several of them is not as good.
Yep.
But the first Autarch Wayleaper you put in a list is the best character in the game. We said the line. Number one, top of the tier list. Everyone's shocked. The audience doesn't even know what to say.
Yeah, so in addition to being a lone op, he gives you a CP.
Yep.
That is amazing because Eldar just wants to spam the exact same 3 CP almost every time.
It's the fact that Sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
It's the fact that Eldar gets so locked into the cycle of I can spend 3 CP this turn.
Just all the time.
And it's other characters give a CP. Calgar gives a CP. Azrael gives a CP. Ultramarine Vanguard and Dark Angels sometimes spend 1 CP, sometimes spend 4, and you moderate between them and it's fine. Eldar spends Fire and Fade, or Phantasm, and maybe it's like a Phantasm or an Overwatch. They want to threaten both, and then they spend Fire and Fade. And you just have to have that happening. He can take enhancements. He hits harder than an elf character looks like.
He can
He's a lone operative that
out.
is insanely fast. Mm-hmm. And
his gun is pretty darn decent.
yeah, actually has an aura for the army too.
Yep.
Maybe I'm a tier player, so I notice these things. I'm sure people don't even know. He's an aura of +1 leadership in an all leadership 6 army. God.
Yeah, I tried the battle shocking thing, and it was like, nah, it's not going to do anything because they have Fate Dice and this guy.
Yeah.
It's just never going to do anything.
It did not work. I have tried to battle shock Eldar. It does not work. It's like, dang it.
In addition, so the main enhancement that you take is the Phoenix Gem in order to, my lone op, you actually committed the resources to kill him through Fate Dice.
Well done. And Phantasm and Lone Operative, you actually got him.
You actually
not bad.
2 of he's back. Just back in a nightmare to deal with again. The Eldar players use him as a screen sometimes, just because if he does die, he stands back up.
It's so disrespectful.
Just like,
it's like, yeah, you can deep strike on him, but on a 3-up, you can't shoot him. And then if you kill him on a 2-up, he's back. This is the plan. I deep strike on the character, hope you fail a 3-up, hope I kill you, hope you fail a 2-up. Excellent, I got your Warlord.
Yeah. I would take him in every single one of my armies, and he would be the first thing on the sheet.
Yeah, like the only army I can imagine him not being taken in is the Space Marine chapters that have like a Calgar. Like, would you take him in a Calgar at the same time? You really might. What it actually means if I had the Wayleaper is I'd play Black Templars with the Wayleaper instead of Ultimates with Calgar.
Probably.
That's what it would actually mean. He can get fights first, so he's an annoying lone op to skirmish with. Mm-hmm. It's almost impossible to catch the slippery boy if he doesn't want to be caught because he moves 14, has an assault weapon, can flat advance 6 for either a CP or a miracle base. His mission pay is insane. It's so frustrating when this guy's dancing around backfields, never getting caught because the other player has a tape measure, and then like, you know what? I did just draw deploy enemy behind enemy lines deploy homers. You've been doing a really good job screening around the Hawks. Okay, I'm going to move him 20 inches, get within 6 to the center. He's going to deploy a teleport homer. Now I'm going to move him 14 inches, get in your deployment zone. The homer is now worth 5 and this, and I'm on your home objective. I'm just like, Like, oh, I'm sorry, I should have seen you moving 34 inches and still like shooting or action coming. That's on me, really.
Yeah, no, he was in the center of the table, and then my opponent, not in a position at all to score behind enemy lines, all of a sudden was like, okay, move, advance, fire and fade, done.
34 inches, he's there. It's like, oh,
no,
wish I'd seen this coming. What am I gonna do? I'm gonna kill him?
Yeah,
kill him with my backfield trash, and he's just like phantasming behind the walls with his melta gun, his fights first, and his Phoenix gem. Like, ah!
So he is a boss, and he's very cheap for what you get. Yep. Just very, very cheap.
And it's I know we talked about having the amazing Phoenix gem. He is still good with other enhancements.
Yes.
Like the Flip a 6 one, Fate's Messenger, I gotta say, when you're packing a 20-inch moving Melta 3 gun, if you can hit on a 2 with a reroll, wound on a 5 with a reroll, then flip it to a 6 just in case you didn't wound and you didn't want to spend a Fate dice, like you can just walk him up to something, throw a grenade, like walk him up to a Rhino. Throw a grenade and just be like, okay, I threw a grenade. I did not 0 mortals to this Rhino. Now I shoot. I hit on a 2. I re-roll it. I wound on a 5. I re-roll it. It still didn't work. Let's just make it a 6 after I failed the wound roll twice. And now I haven't used a Fate dice yet. 9 damage.
Yeah, I mean,
like he just zips around, kills a tank, leaves. And
you got a wounded Catan out there. Grenades, boom. Put the Melta into it.
Yeah, and if they fail, 6 damage. It's like, oh,
oh Lord. This guy's fantastic.
Yeah, he's best character in the game.
All right, well, that is our list.
That was 10 and quite a few extras. And we even threw an honorable mention in for the honorable mentions.
There's a lot of good characters in the game. There's a lot of very good characters. Not all of them are leading. Some of them are lone ops. And some of them are just aura abilities.
There are good ones that didn't make the list, like Luminor Xerez.
And the Silent King.
And the Silent King. Silent King, look, again,
he is super good.
It's so easy to do it. Astra Militarum characters, like Leontis and Creed, both were in the discussion.
Commander.
The Tank Commander is great. Like, there are good Astra Militarum characters.
Yep, I saw Gaz mentioned.
Yep.
The war bosses in...
Badrock.
Yep, Captain Badrock. There's a lot of good characters out there.
What's the unkillable Squigaboy on Big Swig? Mozrog?
The Mozrog.
Mozrog, yeah.
Mozrog,
what a guy.
Scrag bad.
True, on Big Champa.
So if your character didn't get mentioned, don't worry. There's still a lot of very good ones out there. So hope you like this content piece. Give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell your friends about us, and leave a comment below letting us know what you thought of the list and which ones you would have had on there. I'm excited to see because there's probably some other ones, some more niche picks. I had Anva on there as a question mark in the honorable mention section. Like he's hilarious.
You thought this tier list was going to end without me mentioning Uriel Ventress?
Oh.
Gotta give him a shout.
So there's a lot of great things out there. Really appreciate everybody's support. If you want to see more content from us, please do check out the other live streams we have coming up this week, which includes tomorrow, GSC versus Imperial Knights on our YouTube channel at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And then we also, on Thursday, have Fix My List Imperium, in which we'll be fixing Worm members' Imperium lists. And if you want to be a part of that, having your list submitted, or just accessing all the awesome content, please check out The Worm, theworm.vhx.tv. There's a 3-day free trial. There's access to our awesome iOS and Android apps. And you also get access to brilliant content put in, week out, all about all the things you want to know. If you want to know everything about Black Templars, Black Templar Masterclass this week. You want to know everything about, doing the WTC charging ruins? John just did a video on it last week.
Sure did.
So everything that you could possibly want, there's content in there for you. Appreciate everybody's support. Thank you so much for joining me, Mr. John.
Absolutely. It's always fun to be here. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you all next time.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.